Talk of the Town is up and running at Oak USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. A hello to everybody. Here we are. It's November, and think of where we'll be roughly a year from now. The first Tuesday in November will be quite the election day. The midterm elections will be quite the election time in this area because the congressional race will be hot and heavy. People will be surrounding the congressional race here in the Chippewa Valley. Whoever ends up challenging Derek Van Orden, whoever comes out of the Democratic primary and challenges Derek Van Orden, there will be people surrounding that race as though it's the hot case at a Quick Trip. People will be poking and prodding and making their, and some people will be on the outside, and some people will actually invest into that hot case. That'll be an interesting thing to follow, and no doubt you and I won't be able to avoid it, starting probably in its earnest by mid-August of next year. And once we get to September and especially October, you will be begging for car dealer ads and for ads from various weight loss management places here in the Chippewa Valley, because it's just going to be one after another, a Van Orden ad and the Democratic challenger, and the Van Orden ad and the Democrat challenger. And don't forget the congressional race that's going to be going on to the eastern side of the Chippewa Valley, because the congressional seat there's up for grabs, and you got a governor's race. So much. But that's a year from now. You and I can sit back and smile, almost take the mental sit on a back porch with a cool glass of lemonade. Not figuratively, not literally, but in your mind, take the equivalency of sitting on the back porch with a ice cold lemonade and relax, because that's something for us to think about in the future. Right now, we got to be stuck in the now. As always, plenty to get to. Don't forget, check out all the great shows we have at Eau Claire Hometown Media. Another great month of October. We'll be announcing it when the final numbers come in, but looking like it's going to be a top 5 month for us. October looks like it's going to be one of our 5th most listened to months ever. Number of shows setting their own personal records. Talk of the Town is blooming like a flower in the springtime. People are excited. People are engaged in our product. Gotta love it. Well, I've got to love it. You don't have to love it, but I've got to love it. So lots of excitement. People around us. Very much, Eau Claire Hometown Media is that person that's holding court. Our media outlet's the one is that person at the party that gets to hold court in the corner. Start with this today. We got a bunch of things to hit on today. First off, you go back to last Thursday, and we covered the story of the students at UW Eau Claire in the Republicans Club and the inappropriate photos that they posted on social media. And go back and watch or listen to that episode from last Thursday, which also was a Hungry Italian episode, so get some local food reviews. Go back, you can get the full context. But it is sad that story about the college students dressing as, it was a couple's costume. One dressed as an ICE agent, which on its own is not bad. Another dressed as a quote-unquote stereotypical Latina protester. Again, on its own, not horrible, though. If I'm that girl's father, I'm telling her make better choices. But you combine the two together, where the kid dresses the ICE agents pretending to arrest the protester, and it makes for a bad optic. It makes for a bad look, and it's not worth it. How many times do I tell you, folks? Is the juice worth the squeeze? It wasn't. Now, understand, you can support ICE, you can have conservative ideals, and still think it was stupid. And that's what we talked about last Thursday. Those, though, who say, well, here's the thing. I'm disappointed that story didn't really generate the traction, not only on this platform, but on other platforms. It didn't really generate much fervor. It kind of came and went. There hasn't been a lot of chatter about it. There hasn't been a lot of passion about it. I don't necessarily want anger, but there hasn't been a lot of passion, hasn't been a lot of talking about it. Those who say the media is left-leaning, I've always said it's laughable. It's laughable when you say the media is left-leaning. If anything, and this is what I mean by this, if anything, the media is dictated by the extreme right. Let me explain. Not only in the content it covers, but in what gets attention. Those who complain it's left-leaning, you're playing into the hands of the media, including me. If I come on the air and I'm feeling passionate about a topic that is woke, and there's times where I'm very irritated at something that truly is woke, and if I attack something that is woke, we get a lot of traffic, we get a lot of attention, we get a lot of traction. Don't think the people at QOW and EAU and the national outlets don't recognize the same thing. If you attack something that's woke or you bring up something that's woke or anything, that gets a lot of traction. If it's the other way around, like this was, you tend not to get much. People are much more vocal complaining about something that is left than they are about something that is to the right. Well, how do you explain all the negative commentary on stuff that's coming out of this spot and that spot of the federal government? They know what they're doing. They know that you will come to the aid or the vocal defense of it. It gets traction. It gets eyeballs. It's all of that. So just understand, you go back to that story last week, and even if you thought the kids, hey, that's okay what they did, all that, that doesn't bring as much passion out of you either. So again, I wish there was more discussion about what had happened last week. I said it on Thursday. Do I think the kids should be expelled or anything like that? No. No, and this is not at the level of what that idiotic professor did in the spring. It's not even close to that as far as the actual physical action was. But on the stupidity meter, it is kind of close. All right? These kids have grown up with social media. We're 2-3 generations now into kids growing up with social media. They should know better. Even if you do that in the circle of, you want to be common sense, everybody. Think of how we'll just keep it real. We'll keep it in this time frame. Keep it simple. Think of how many Halloween parties there were over the weekend. All right? Think of how many Halloween parties there were. And I guarantee you there were inappropriate outfits that were worn and all that amongst friends, and people are able to bounce jokes off each other. And there's also times where somebody might have crossed the line and their friends will call them out on it. And it stays amongst your group and all of that. It becomes a whole other thing if you post it online. It becomes a whole other thing if you go out in public because you want to be seen. You want to push buttons. All right, you want the smoke? You're going to get the smoke. I just wish that it had more discussion last week. I really, really do. All right? I really, really do. Okay. The Chippewa Falls city government has announced that the pool, the Bernard Willis pool, over last summer lost $15,000. The pool, a $15,000 cost to the, well, not cost, in the red. $15,000 in the red with the its operation last summer. The YMCA, which is helping to manage it, and the city will share in the cost. I don't necessarily think this is something of alarm, in that none of this is surprising. It was known that the pool, when they kept it open, is something that is a drain on finances. It's not going to make money. It's not going to break even. It is hard to do all that. You want to start breaking it even, you want to start to bring up the revenue, you're going to have to start charging a lot more. And when you start charging a lot more, the value of what it is doesn't quite match up. You have less people that go to it, and it becomes even more of an issue. You want this to be the sort of thing that nobody thinks about what they're spending when they go. A public entity like the pool. So none of this is surprising, nor is the fact that the pool will stay open as long as citizens in Chippewa Falls are willing to pay. This was what was established a couple of years ago, which I firmly agree with, and I think the people in Chippewa Falls still very much agree with. Yes, this is something that is a toy. This is something that's not a revenue generator. This is something that is not only in the red, but it's bolded in the red on the city ledgers. But we want it. It's something that brings a value that goes beyond money to the community. It is worth it. There's some of you out there that have got hot tubs in your backyard. The hot tub is a loss. It's a losing asset to your home. The hot tub does not bring in any value. The hot tub doesn't bring in any revenue, and it doesn't really add much value to your home either. But it's okay. Toys are okay. You can't, in some cases, you can afford more toys than others, but toys are okay to have. It is worth monitoring how much this ends up costing Chippewa Falls, and at one point you may have to revisit everything. You just might. And at one point, how far can you go cutting expenses? Because we keep talking about cutting expenses, that's as though that's automatically the fix to everything. At one point, you get to a level where, okay, we've literally cut everything off. We've got nothing left. You've now gone backwards, okay? You start cutting off limbs. If you get to the point you've cut everything off, we have to save space, all right? We have to save space. Think of that. You're in a box, and you've got to save space, and there's things around. You start throwing things out of the box, okay? At one point, there's still not enough room, and there's nothing left in the box except for your own hands and limbs and feet. All right. Now it becomes idiotic for you to save space by cutting off limbs. That's not what you want. That's what has to be monitored. How far can you cut back expenses before it's not worth it to cut expenses? You start cutting expenses to the point that you no longer have a pool. Like, are you going to cut expenses to the point where you've got leaks in the pool? Then you don't have a pool. All you've got is at best a wading pool, and at worst probably a stream. You don't want that. So again, something to monitor. The fact that the pool lost $15,000, I don't think it's going to cause massive changes up there, nor should it, but it's something to monitor. And also, remember, the appetite for something can rightfully change over time. So 2-3 years ago, everybody was very passionate about keeping the pool open. In 5 more years or 10 more years, the appetite might be a lot different. Society may change. The type of people may have different opinions. Something else may pop up there, whatever. Or you might get some huge benefactor, because Chippewa Falls does have a very robust philanthropic ingrained culture to the community. Maybe somebody writes a big old check and you get one of these indoor, hybrid indoor-outdoor spots. Somebody builds an aquatic center someplace else. You have no idea what's going to go on in 5 to 10 years. So don't just think what was decided a couple years ago has to be the gospel. Some good news, Regis Volleyball headed to the state tournament, saw that, so congratulations to the Regis Ramblers volleyball team. They're heading to Green Bay this weekend. May they have fun. The Regis football team takes on Mondovi on Friday night at Carson Park. That will be a whale of a game. That will be a game full of haymakers. Not literally, but figuratively, that'll be some haymaker football on Friday. Regis against Mondovi, playoff football, and you can catch the game right here on ECHometownRadio.com and our radio friends on 93.5 FM. 6:45 broadcast start on Friday. Those two, Regis went undefeated this year. Mondovi only had one loss. Mondovi's one loss was to Regis roughly a month ago at Carson Park, a game that Regis won on a 40-yard Hail Mary at the gun. That was the difference. If the ball doesn't reach the end zone, if the ball falls incomplete, which 99% of Hail Marys do, Mondovi wins. Instead of Regis, puns firmly included here, had their prayer answered. And the two get to meet again coming up on Friday night. That should be a good game. You look at the stats, you look at the head-to-head matchup and all that. Mondovi's got this outstanding sophomore quarterback. In fact, most of their team are sophomores. And then you've got Regis, which is a little more senior-laden, but Regis has just been a wagon for years. A lot of fun. Friday night, 6:45 broadcast time on 93.5 and here at ECHometownRadio.com. Saw late last week, sort of a late week news dump for what was otherwise positive news by this organization, but the Venture Academy, which has been in operation in Chippewa Falls for a couple of years, has announced that they are taking the next step and looking to build a big campus in Lake Hallie, that they have already started to fundraise for, and they're looking to make the final push for that, and they would open up a campus, which would house classrooms, office space, also have a field house for athletic events. It would be a full-on school now, running from K through 12, and they're looking to make that next step, one of these private charter school situations, and we'll see how that goes for Venture Academy. Venture Academy started off a couple years ago, focused on the younger age groups. Now, as those younger age groups begin to work in the middle school and high school, well, they need to take the next step and have a larger campus. I remain skeptical over these, what I'll always call for-profit schools. That's what they are. They are for-profit schools. I don't think these for-profit schools add anything to the academic ecosystem. I really don't. I question how much they add to the academic ecosystem. It is so easy to bag on public schools. And frankly, people are now bagging on the parochials as well. And I don't just say this because we obviously have business partnerships with schools. Trust me, ask some of our partners. I've said things that have upset our partners in the past, and they still stay with us because they know where the heart truly is. I'm not lying when I give my thoughts here on the program. But you know what, folks? Smart people know you can disagree. So I could say whatever I wanted about the schools and feel comfortable about it. And that's how you also know I'm being truthful when I say this. I think it's idiotic to bag on public schools. It's so easy, it's low-hanging fruit, and it's lazy. The public schools are not a problem in this area. Are there parts of the country where they are a problem? Absolutely, I'm sure of it. But here, overall, they're very good. Oh, well, I know so-and-so, and they had a problem, and all that. There's going to be some problems. There's going to be a conflict of personalities. There's going to be kids that, unfortunately, for whatever reason, things just aren't matching up. There is, and it becomes a never-ending cycle. Somebody has a bad experience in third grade, and it leads into fourth grade, fifth grade, whatever. Those things happen, but the vast majority of it is good. It is good. People have a good experience. They are set up with a number of opportunities that do not exist with these for-profits. The co-curriculars, which are so important, not just the X's and O's, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, but all of the social stuff, the good and the bad. Remember, you and I all learned from the bad as much as we did from the good in social interactions in schools. I mean, God bless the people and best of luck to these for-profit schools, but I don't think they're adding to the educational ecosystem whatsoever. I really don't. And I don't think and many a times they are being created because people want to emphasize, or more importantly, de-emphasize a well-rounded education. In a public school, no matter what you may want to believe, a public school gives a full circle explanation. Well, what about religion? Well, religion sneaks in there in ways you may not know. All right? And religion would sneak in more to the public schools if it would be allowed. And the same thing with the parochial schools. They allow non-religious thinking to get in more than you would think as well. You get a full rounded. The for-profit schools, their idea, their whole business mantra, their whole marketing is, hey, you only want your kid getting, halfway around the clock? That's what we believe in. So we had a guy on a podcast of ours. We've had a couple of these for-profit school people on some of our podcasts before, and they speak a good game, and I think they mean well, but I think they would be all better served if these educators were working in the system. Help the system out that we got. The more voices we have, by the way, I don't believe in what the public schools are teaching. Great. Work in the public schools. Work in administration. The more conflicting ideas you have, the better we get. In cooking, spicy and sugar go together very well. They accentuate each other. On their own, you wouldn't think they get along well. You mix the two together, it's gorgeous. Same thing. And welcome to being an adult. You might not get your way 100%. Well, I couldn't work for the public schools, or I couldn't work for the parochial schools because I disagreed too much. Welcome to being an adult. So keep an eye on the Venture Academy and what they've got going on. I will throw this out there too. A sneaky thing that the public and the parochial schools have got is the well-established co-curriculars, the music programs, the theatrical departments, and obviously the athletics. And I do think these for-profit schools kind of push those to the side. Will Venture Academy have athletic programs? Maybe, and it'll take them time, and eventually they could. But the quiet part that they won't always say out loud, but sometimes they'll sneak it out. They don't believe in the co-curriculars. They think a music class can just take care of the co-curricular and this, that, and, a kid can go play private soccer or whatever. No. More and more public schools, and obviously the parochials have always utilized the co-curriculars to help bring students in. But the studies are becoming very clear on this, and not just the studies that you can get factual evidence. The eyeball test tells you the importance of co-curriculars, and not just sports, but the athletics, the clubs, all that stuff. That is so important. It is so important. It's more important now than it was 25, 30 years ago, because that's where kids really learn their passion. That's where they really learn their passion and what they want to do. And I know some of you, by the way, have told me before, well, you know what? I think kids spend too much time on co-curriculars. They should just go to work after school. You can do both. Because you can learn stuff working at Culver's or any other spots when you're 16, 17, 18. But do more. This is why, by the way, you don't have as much homework as there was a generation ago. There is no homework anymore. None. There is no such thing as homework anymore. So kids have all this time to explore their lives. And again, you can't convince me right now that the for-profit schools are able to match that up. And we could have a whole 30-minute show, and I know people will come back and go, well, I just don't believe that this school is teaching the right thing to my kid. Well, what do you mean they're not teaching the right thing to your kid? And sometimes when I come back with that on people, I go, give me specifics. And usually it's because you disagree with something and you're not allowing your own kid to make up their own choices as well. I, for one, in baseball, have a hard time ever accepting the use of the contact play. I'm not going to go into the nuances of the contact play. I'm just using this as an example. I don't like the contact play in baseball. And if, let's say in school, they were teaching my kids the benefits of the contact play. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't want them to learn the contact play. But if in the whole lesson plan, they're not just learning the contact play, but they're learning why the contact play is good. They're learning the pitfalls of the contact play, and they're learning all of the things around the contact play. All right, that's fine. It serves them better to learn it than to just be shielded from it. Some other good news in the area, the Chippewa Valley Co-op Hospital. Yep, that's still happening. The Chippewa Valley Co-op Hospital, they're the ones that are looking to build the Mammoth Medical Complex. We'll call it that, a Mammoth Medical Complex. And Lake Course have taken over the former St. Joseph's Hospital, look to turn that into a full-service hospital within the next few months as a bridge before they open the new complex in Lake Hallie. Well, they also just recently opened a cancer center in the former St. Joseph's Hospital. So ahead of opening it as a full-service hospital, they've opened a cancer center at the former St. Joseph's Hospital. So it's been messy. It's been rocky, if you will. But in the end, a lot of the optimism that our area had that, hey, the closure of Sacred Heart was not a good thing. Two things can be true. It was not a good thing. It just wasn't. But we can be better for this. It's like, sometimes you lose a job you really liked, or a job you were okay with. Maybe it wasn't your dream, but you're okay with it. It was steady. You weren't miserable with it. And then you lose the job. And then there's the terrible period after, and then it takes time. But eventually, maybe 3-4 years down the way, you might be in a better situation with more money. You're happier. All that. And right now, everything's progressing towards that in our area, which would be a good thing. You'd much rather have not had to go through the closure of HSHS. But you could still be in a better spot than you were before. And saying you were in a better spot before doesn't mean that the closure was a good thing and vice versa. Because you don't want it to have that dark period. But you didn't have to be in a downward spiral. And it looks like a lot of the optimism the area had in the weeks after HSHS, because you'd hear a lot of people talking kind of bullishly, whether they were speaking out their asses or not, we're getting that optimism. We're not going to have time really to cover this. Senator Jesse James introduced legislation to create a new criminal offense that specifically defines and penalizes grooming a child for sexual activity under Wisconsin law. This comes on the heels of that report that came out last month from the Capital Times in Madison that revealed widespread allegations of sexual misconduct and grooming within Wisconsin schools, and what is claimed to be a lack of transparency from the DPI. Talking to school officials, this is a case of facts kind of being manipulated a little bit. nothing is happening in the darkness, and nobody's hiding anything. You got to remember, you can't really go public with a lot of stuff because it hurts potential cases. Now, that being said, I don't think this is the way that James wants this. I don't necessarily think this is what he was thinking about, but this legislation he's put forth, along with co-sponsored by a fellow Republican downstate, this would strengthen, because the laws right now actually aren't that strong. So they are going to strengthen the laws. I think they kind of did this as an attack on the woke DPI. And trust me, the DPI can be woke, if you will. But in the end, long story short, the legislation's good, increased penalties that need to be done, and also, from all accounts, things aren't really happening quietly. All right, your kids are safe. All right, my kids are safe. They're safe. People are keeping a very close eye on things. You just cannot come out and throw out every allegation that there is. And right now, and this is not the DPI or public school or even parochial schools' fault, the laws aren't that strong. So that's not their fault. But that's worth monitoring there and keeping an eye on. That's the sort of thing, by the way, working on protecting the kids. That's a lot better than some of the other things that they're working on downstate. All right, that'll do it for today's edition of Talk of the Town. Back with you on Thursday with another edition then. On behalf of everyone who made this podcast possible, I'm Scott Montesano saying there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until next